There we go, 2023. We're kicking it off with Daniella in the studio with us here today from Tiger Canyon.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Thank you for coming through. This is a conversation that is long overdue, and I'm so excited to finally have you here in the studio.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my first podcast.
I hope it's a memorable one. Where are you from?
I grew up in Benoni. Spent all of my spare time, at least with my family, going to the Kruger and the bush and those kinds of places, and that is what sparked my love to want to be a guide. And I've been in the industry now for 12 years. That's
quite an experienced time to be a ranger.
It is.
Following up on that, you are from a very, very special and specific place at the moment. Please tell us more about Tiger Canyon.
So, a friend of mine has kind of been visiting Tiger Canyon for the last, going on now 10 years. At the time, it was like 7 years. And he had asked over and over again, you got to come check out Tiger Canyon, but our schedules never aligned until COVID. So it was middle of lockdown. I mean, you couldn't even cross provincial borders at that stage, but we got our permits written up and off we went to stay 2 weeks at Tiger Canyon, which was awesome. We just stayed in the farmhouse where the owner stays because he lives on site. And it was 3 guides with the whole reserve to ourselves, and it was absolutely incredible. And we were just blown away by, obviously, it's so surreal to see tigers roaming, the grasslands of South Africa, but just everything in general. It's a very underrated area, the Free State, and most people's taste of it is when you drive the N1 on your way down to the coast. But, if you go off the beaten track a bit, and we very much are off the beaten track, just a whole other world opens up. And, there's canyons, hence the name. We're on the border of the Orange River as well as the Van der Kloof Dam, which is the 3rd largest dam in our country.
And a spectacular view over it for some
an insane view. It's you can't describe it, and photos don't even do it justice. You kind of have to. That's the kind of place you got to see it for yourself.
Photos doesn't do it justice. I was lucky enough to have gone through there to come and test the R3 with you guys and with Canon. And that's where I got to meet you and AD and just experience Tiger Canyon. I mean, it's tigers in the wild.
It is.
In spite of what everybody, or the controversy.
Yes.
Can we speak about that? Can we talk about the controversy around Tiger Canyon? Because there's this perception that you guys have cats in cages.
Yes.
And they're not supposed to be here.
Yeah, so there's actually a neighboring property that we often get confused with called Lau Valley, and their situation is completely different to ours. I've never been there myself, but Tiger Canyon, it's about a 6,500 hectare reserve, and it is divided into 4 massive spaces. The one area is solely for our cheetah, which we work with the Endangered Wildlife Trust to help repopulate and diversify the genetics of cheetah throughout Africa. And then we've got 3 different tiger areas, and the reason why we've got 3 different areas is because of the number of tigers that we have, so social dynamics and inbreeding, etc. We do separate the family groups and certain individuals, and we grade those areas according to tiger habitat suitability. And then that determines how many tigers can be homed or free to roam in that space. You obviously don't want to put too many tigers in a space. Obviously, they're going to start competing for resources and space if there's not enough of it, and then they start killing each other, which is not the point. We're trying to preserve a genetically diverse population of Bengal tigers outside of Asia. Yeah.
So let's just cut straight to that point. I mean, this isn't a petting zoo. This isn't a matter of finding cats and putting them in captivity for people just to come and have a look at.
Yes.
This was a decision that was made to extend the bloodlines or the lifespan of these animals to prevent the extinction of a breed, of a species.
Yeah.
Similar to how rhinos are being exported out of South Africa up into Africa, and I heard they're even moving some of them to Australia just to try and protect the species.
Yeah, there's even a project kind of similar in Texas with white rhinos. So they're kind of breeding rhinos outside of Africa because in future we might need those genetics to be brought back, especially if the population reduces. Yeah, so it's a very similar concept to that.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people, obviously, they're not supposed to be here in the wild or in Africa in general.
Yes.
Obviously, the terrain that they move through in Philippopolis, where you guys are, is slightly different to what it is in India.
It is slightly different, but tigers, if you look at where tigers occur, I mean, it's in completely diverse and different areas. I mean, their habitats are anything from tropical rainforest to mangrove swamps to grasslands to savannas. So we in the Free State, exactly. I mean, cats are the most adaptable of all the species. I mean, that's why you get a species of feline virtually on every continent, and they've just adapted amazingly well to their surroundings.
I mean, look at the lions, how they coming from the Kruger, going through to the Kalahari, to Namibia.
Yeah, deserts. Exactly. I mean, there's even the Congo Basin, certain fragmented outskirts of the rainforest, there's lions. I mean, if you look at leopards occur in all sorts of terrain. Also, we're talking Bengal tigers, and I mean, where they occur is India, Nepal and Bhutan, and I mean that's approaching the Himalayas, so they're adaptable, I mean we see it with house cats, for example.
It happens.
A lot of hand movements. I mean people often ask, well, how did they start to hunt or whatever, so again we see it with our domestic house cats. They certainly don't have mothers to teach them how to hunt, yet they do quite well, bringing you back presents in the form of birds or lizards. And interesting fact, house cats, domestic cats are responsible for 26% of species extinction in the form of birds, reptiles, you name it. So all those little presents they bring back for you are actually, it's a big problem. So encourage putting bells on your cats so it makes it a little bit more challenging.
I don't want to get too deep into that cat conversation as a dog person. Let's stick to your cats. Your cats are special.
The first ones came from Canada, from Zoo and a Circus. And John Varty spent about 6 weeks driving around the country with the tigers on the back of his vehicle. I mean, and now we're talking over 25 years ago. So this is a long
Times
time
have
ago.
changed.
Times
and procedures have changed.
Exactly.
So don't get too sensitive right now.
Exactly. So things are definitely different. He eventually came across land in the Free State. It was a lot cheaper. So most of the land in the area where we are is sheep or cattle farms. It's because it's such rugged, harsh terrain, you don't realize how the closer you get to the Orange River, how rocky and difficult the environment becomes. And so land is actually not conducive for farming. I mean, we could get into that topic as well, so no land should be conducive for farming. But anyways, so he acquired the land at a reasonable price because the farmer actually thought that John Varty was a fellow farmer looking to buy land, and so he bought the first 1,000 hectares, and he started the process of rewilding the tigers. So obviously those tigers would have needed a lot of help initially, but would have managed to hunt a bit on their own, and then obviously what they learned they would have passed on, and now we are 4th generation wild born tigers. So they were, people's like, so do you breed your tigers? Like, well, I mean, we can't force love, but
you leave them and things happen.
Exactly. And if they like each other, then yes, they do mate and whatnot. And there are different ways that we control bloodlines and whatnot. So the different areas prevent inbreeding, which is obviously something we don't want. We also, if we don't want a female or a male to breed, then we vasectomize or give her a contraceptive. So it just depends on how we decide to manage the tigers, because we do have to manage them to an extent, and we can't have too many cats breeding either, so because there's not enough space for that. Carrying capacity, so we've got 10 tigers at the moment. Carrying capacity is about, I'd say, maybe 20 tigers, maybe. So, but at the moment it's at
got space for some babies.
Yeah, we definitely have some space, and we're hoping that the one white tigress will give birth around the end of March, hopefully. Her and Kumba had about a week-long mating session in December, so it's a 110-day gestation period, so you can kind of like work it out, and then which will be, very awesome. It's going into winter, so a lot of the leaves fall off of the trees, so finding the cubs will be a little bit easier.
What I'm hearing is book April, May.
Yeah, exactly.
Book
April, May, even June.
Book April, May, June.
Yeah, basically.
And you mentioned about the farming.
Yes, yeah.
Let's just talk about that, because Africa, farming, hand in hand, especially that part of Africa.
So, I mean, if you look at Africa as a whole, about 45% of Africa's farmland. And, besides removing indigenous plant species, obviously animals themselves can be quite destructive. Another thing about, because people will often say, well, why don't you put lions there then instead of tigers? Lions have a lot more space than tigers at the end of the day. The areas in which tigers occur, the land is so quickly decreasing. And India is a great example. So you're supposed to have these natural land bridges or corridors between reserves that allows the diversification of genetics. Now those land bridges are closing because of the population growth, and tigers are now no longer able to meander or migrate across these land bridges. So one of the issues that they're going to face soon is inbreeding. So once inbred, it's actually quite natural. It's known as genetic bottlenecking. But usually by the next generation, a new genetic line has come in. However, the further along you go with inbreeding, the more like internal deformities you'll get. So weakened immune systems, succumbing to renal failure, etc. And then the further along you go, you'll have these internal deformities as well as external. So cleft palates, eyes far apart, eyes close together, stubby legs. And then in the end, you have a species that not only looks strange, but only lives to like 8 to 10 years. I mean, you see it often in dog breeds as a good example. And the thing with Africa is that we have the space. I mean, again, 45% of Africa is farmed. So imagine we could take more land, let it rehabilitate and go back to its natural state, allow those indigenous and endemic species to move back into the area like they once were, but you just have the apex predator be a tiger, It's more about preserving conserving and preserving a different genetic line than increasing numbers, because at the end of the day, there's not enough space for these cats. So it's not about increasing the population. It's about making sure the genetics stay diverse. And people also don't realize how big Africa is. If you look at Africa on a map, what fits inside is the whole of China, whole of India, the whole of the United States, whole of Europe, except for the Scandinavian countries and Japan.
It's
all
big.
fits into Africa. And if you look at India, which is a tiny part of that, there are more people in India than there are in the whole of Africa together. So we have the space, and again, it's about thinking outside of the box. I believe that this is the future of conservation. These are the kind of projects that we need to start thinking about to help species.
Yeah. Recently read the whole thing about if people are involved in the extinction of a species, it's people's responsibility to get involved in conserving and preserving and rehabilitating that species. And that's exactly what you guys are doing. Awesome. When we were there, there were 2 cubs.
Yes.
But when I say cubs, I just want to I want to put this on record. Cubs is like fully grown leopards. Those cats are humongous.
They are. I think you would have seen them when they were about a year old, I think is when you saw them. So, you know, it's so funny when sometimes those were the first tigers you'd go to show the guests and be like, oh, wow, no, they're not that big. You know, I thought a tiger was bigger, but they thought that they were looking at adult tigers. They were not. They were looking at the youngsters. The cubs.
It was an incredible experience. And again, I know there's a lot of controversy, and obviously John Barty's name is a hot topic. Yes. He's distanced himself from the project.
He has, but we do consult on various topics, because he's got the experience, you know, he's kind of, he's got trial and error as well, you know, the things that he figured out when he started it's valuable information, you know.
I also think the majority of the controversy is around people not really understanding what he's done behind the scenes to get it to where it is now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, back in the day, I think, you know, it was 25 years ago, it wasn't a big deal to walk with a tiger or to pet a lion, you know, that was kind of the thing that was happening back then. But it now very much...
zoos were horrible little cages.
Exactly, you know, and that was never the case at Tiger Canyon regardless. But anyways, where we are now is very much, like I said, 4th generation wildborn. And people do, you know, people struggle with these type of controversial conservation efforts, you know, or projects. And for me, my personal opinion is that you have to, when people are the reason for animals either becoming extinct or on the verge of extinction. I mean, tiger's one of the most endangered species in the world. There's about only around 4,500 tigers left in the wild of all species. So there's 2 recognized species of tiger, the continental tiger, and then the Sundra tiger, which is an island tiger. And then there are species within the continental range. So Bengal tigers, which is the species that we have, subspecies, in the wild, we're looking at maybe 2,000 left. And for me, at the end of the day, you've got to start thinking outside of the box for conservation efforts. You know, the plan now, for the most part, is okay. Species is about to go extinct. How can we help? Okay, we're going to go to all the zoos around the world and, you know, bring those species together and try and make a new population of something. Now imagine you already have a wild population that you could relocate. You know, it's been tried and tested. With the cheetahs, it happens all the time. Once they reach about 2 years old, we're confident that they can hunt and fend for themselves. Mom has raised them well. They get sent off to repopulate other reserves. So we've had...
That's exactly it. Sorry, but this isn't something that's new.
Yes.
It's something that's tried and tested. It's worldwide.
Yes.
It's just that you guys are doing it with tigers.
Exactly.
Instead of lions, cheetahs, leopards, whatever else.
And I mean, it was a sheep farm, you know, so it's amazing the impact that sheep farms have. I mean, obviously we know it's going to have a huge impact. As soon as you're a farmer, you are going to be at constant war with nature. There's something that's going to hinder you and you're going to try and get rid of it. And often it's not selective. So, you know, like the historical poisoning of vermin species in that area, which, you know, was largely one of the reasons why, like, the cheetah are now almost extinct. Well, now they're doing a lot better, but roughly around 6,000 left in the wild. But one of the reasons that they almost went extinct a couple of decades ago is farming, the poison by the farmers. So when these farms were taken away from being sheep and cattle farms and allowed to rehabilitate, you know, we had to send people out. They had to go on foot for days looking for any leftover gin traps that the farmers would have left behind, which is also very interesting. Often the farmers don't think to go back and clean up after themselves. You know, they just kind of leave it, vacate the land.
A farmer can be a very caring character,
yes,
but usually for a specific
yeah.
set of animals on his property.
Yeah, so a gin trap is kind of like one of those little bear traps, it's just smaller and again not selective. So I mean, it took about 7 years to see smaller species come back into that area, and 15 years for others, and some we're not seeing back in the area yet. Like you go the other side of Philippolis, or that dirt road, where there's some game farms. You see bat-eared foxes there, but like you get to Tiger Canyon's gate and you still don't see bat-eared foxes there. But we're seeing a lot of the other species come back. Exciting ones are like black-footed cats, striped weasels.
I want to get to all the other little intricacies around Tiger Canyon.
And you're seeing all these small things come back, and that wouldn't have been the case had this reserve not been made. It's just that the apex predator is now the tiger. And the other thing that people don't realize is that firstly, change never happened with everyone feeling comfortable about it. So you're going to have the people that are uncomfortable, and the funny thing is these uncomfortable people call themselves purists, and nowadays that's such a, what is a purist? Is it going to Tanzania and sitting, blocking a crossing with 50, 100 vehicles?
Yeah, the videos that I've seen lately going viral around Serengeti and that area, it is an absolute madhouse. That's not a better situation for a cat to be. I think it's actually worse.
Exactly, but that's somehow okay. But to have a conservation project where we're helping to try and save a species, that's your line. Like it just is a little bit blurred for me.
I think the big thing around it, and this is absolutely my opinion, and what I try and tell people is go and visit Tiger Canyon.
Yeah, see it for yourself.
As soon as I see people start getting upset about Tiger Canyon, and cats shouldn't be here or whatever, those tigers shouldn't be here. Go to Tiger Canyon, go and experience it. Just 2 nights there, and I'm absolutely certain people will change their mind and their views and everything around what you guys are actually doing there. I mean, a simple thing about that, they shouldn't be here. They come from the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere.
Do you have a dog? Like, where do we start this conversation?
Yeah, but just on a basic level, how long did it take them to get their winter coats in the southern hemisphere? I think Eddie last mentioned it was like in the second season. They already got their winter coats.
Yes, yeah.
So they've already adapted to northern hemisphere weather versus southern hemisphere weather.
Yes.
They're hunting. I mean, the time that we spent there, we saw those cubs looking and peering into each and every aardvark hole. Or I mean, they're cats. They're inquisitive. They're hunting. They're going on.
The instinct is there.
It's absolutely just living wild.
The instinct it doesn't go away. Again, great example is your house cats. It never had a mother to teach it how to hunt. So the instinct is there. It's just a little bit more challenging when you're a lot bigger and your prey is a lot bigger. So there's a lot more trial and error in that situation. But it's there. That instinct is there. We don't need to tell them to go hunt. They're going to do it anyways.
So you guys brought in one of the stories that I heard was you guys brought in an eland population or tried to. Yes. Just tell me, how long did that last?
Oh my goodness, I think it was over the course of about, I guess now in the long run, it's 7 years, but we started with 16 and now we only have 2. But the 2 have been, it's these 2 big, beautiful bulls. And they've managed to evade the tigers now for a good, the whole time, but 2 years we haven't seen a tiger on an eland kill.
But it happens.
It happens, so yes. I've seen
big thing
it
with
for
the
myself.
Pointy head, I was lekker.
Yeah, exactly. Very good. And it's also, the elands are in an area where it's amazing habitat for tigers. They are ambush predators, so they do need areas where ambushing is possible. So in the south, where there are a lot of big rocks, a lot of bushes, long grass.
We got taken out to one of the big males lying on a rock.
Yes.
And it was majestic. The wind was blowing, and
Yes.
the whole picture. I'll put an image up of it, and obviously with 80 in the car driving us around, and there was a third guide that was close nearby.
Yes.
And Roger from Cannon was there, and they're avid birders, and we'll get to the birding life that's there, because these guys were rambling about the birds, and I was like, but there are tigers.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, but there's a lifer. That's another lifer. That's a...
Yeah.
And 80 was taunting them with, oh, those are rubbish birds. Yeah, we see them so regularly.
Yeah.
And they were going on about a bird on this side, and my wife, we're still trying to figure out which bush, that little brown thing. Yeah, okay. And we turn around, and that massive cat is gone.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah.
And we waited there for a little while to see if anything happened, and we drove 20 meters just to a different angle.
Yeah.
And we saw it just got off the rock and into the grass and laid down.
Yeah.
And it was gone.
Yeah. I mean, it's you go on a game drive, and instead of looking for lions, you go and look for tigers. It's and we do have drives where we cannot find a single tiger, no matter how hard we search, and every bush you kind of stop, because it's a lot of open spaces. So one of the great ways that we do try and spot is drive to a high point and kind of scan, stop, scan. And yeah, there are days where they elude us. So, but usually by the next drive, they've woken up or they've moved or whatever. So, because I've certainly noticed with tigers is that they're a lot more active than leopard and lion, what I've observed.
It was fascinating seeing how inquisitive they are, just in the interaction with one another. And when we eventually stopped at the one water hole and we were taking photographs, how the one cub actually stood up and kind of came closer.
Yes.
I've never seen that with other cats.
Yeah, very curious.
That cub came to the vehicle to come and have a look at what's going on here.
Yeah.
And that's why you have the closed vehicles.
Yes, one of the reasons. So safety is obviously a major priority. So even the lodge area itself is fenced off. So it's not like a lot of other reserves where it's free roaming animals through the lodge. However, the lodge is on the edge of a canyon, and that canyon is part of a tiger area. So we do get tigers in front of the lodge, which, I mean, you would never say that it's fenced off because you're kind of just overlooking this massive, beautiful
how
view.
it's set up from the balcony, you don't see the fencing.
No.
So it feels like it's...
Yeah.
I mean, when I said I wanted to go out the night to go and shoot stars,
Yes.
you guys said, yeah, just follow the road up here, it's fine.
Yeah.
No, there are tigers walking around here. What do you mean it's fine?
Yeah.
And I went out, and something leaped at me in the dark, and I nearly died.
I think it was a rock hair.
And it was a rocky. I was pretty much I was done with stars from there. I have since then not taken another star scale. But the next day we did the review. We shot the review on the R3 there, and I gave my opinion on the camera.
Yeah.
And some of my notes, wind came through, and I felt like an idiot because there you go, my notes. It's over the edge. It's into the felt. And immediately somebody came through to said they'll go and get it. I'm like, no, I'll go and get it. Sorry, I made the mess. I'll go and pick it up. And they were like, no, you won't.
Yeah,
and I remember it took 6 people just to enter through a gate to pick up 3 pages. And I was like, sorry, guys.
Yeah, you got to have some guy looking in every direction.
Spotters.
Yeah, exactly.
Now getting on to the other things, the bird life that's there. It is so rich. I remember Roger and them coming back and saying they had 27 lifers in those 2 days.
So very, again, underrated area for birding. I mean, in the last 2.5 years that we've been at Tiger Canyon, I think myself and AD have added a good 15 birds to the Roberts bird list, where they supposedly are completely out of range. Nope, they're not. They also occur in the Free State, in the middle of it. So, I mean, on a map, we're basically dead center in the country. And we've got 17 endemic species and not very many brightly colored birds, because the habitat isn't conducive to that. It's more your little brown jobs, the little LBJs that we call them. But it's certainly the spot to go and see those. And highlights, birds I would say would be the blue coron.
I just wanted to mention that.
You got an amazing photo. I remember
Yes.
the in-flight photo that you
Yes.
got was incredible.
It was, that was kind of the whole thing that led up to, we spotted a black coron.
Yes.
And Roger and them managed to get shots of it, and they were like, "Oh yes!"
Yeah.
Finally, we took it off, and now we've just got the blue coron left. And Heidi just said, "Oh, that's interesting. Those are trash birds here."
Yeah. Yeah.
So that kind of became a hunt, and again, just the whole experience. I mean, him getting onto the radio and calling the other vehicles, because you send all 3 vehicles out into the veld with the drives.
Generally 2 will be out.
Okay.
Generally, yeah. So
just kind of helping, spotting.
yeah.
Okay.
But it's
But
nice to have the
he picked up the radio.
and you called them in, yeah.
And he said, vehicle 1's looking for blue coron.
Yes.
And we drove not a kilometer, and Eddie picked up the radio and said, "Cancel the lookout for the blue coron."
Yeah.
We're like,
Yeah, they are.
"Why? What?" It's like, "You guys ready? It's going to fly in a couple of seconds."
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was an incredible experience. But also the blue coron, the black coron, the blue cranes there
Yes.
are like pigeons.
So we call ourselves the blue crane capital, you know. So the breeding season is kind of now from November time, so they do start to split off in their monogamous pairs. But what's insane is the winter time they all gather together and they group together. So we could have flocks of like 180 blue cranes.
That is insane.
It is so amazing. Like the photo, you know, so what's nice also about Tiger Canyon is it's so open, and there's so much potential for amazing, insane photographic moments. And, you know, if your guide knows what's what and the terrain and where to go, you can really set up some pretty amazing shots. So one would be like kind of positioning where you plan to see the blue cranes fly in front of the sunset, for example.
But that's
stuff like that.
And we're going to touch on your photography as well, because that's also just gone from it's there to like it is there.
Yeah.
But there are so many opportunities there. It's not only the birding, it's not only the tigers. The cheetahs were incredible. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about getting out of the vehicle with them.
So, I mean, we obviously respect them. They respect us. They don't see us as threats or anything like that. And we don't invade their space.
Guys, never try and pet a cheetah.
Not a wild one.
No. But they're pretty habituated.
They are very habituated. So what's nice is that you can get nice low angle shots, stuff like that. And also it's been quite a special experience because our one female cheetah is raising cubs at the moment. So, you know, to be able to have her completely relaxed from when the cubs are like, I mean, the one cheetah, I was following her and she was behaving weird. And, you know, like being in the industry for over 12 years, it's like become second nature to read an animal's body language. And I just couldn't put my finger on what she was, you know, what was happening. I was like, I can't. She's like, it kind of seems annoyed, but it's not me, you know, because I could tell it wasn't my presence. And I followed her. She must have been at about a 3-meter distance in front of me, and I was just slowly following behind her. And she took me like through a swamp section, onto like this little top plateau out of the swamp, and she went into this like thick grass, and I could just see her belly in a gap, and she started giving birth. So the reaction that I was seeing was her clearly going into labor that I couldn't quite put my finger on. But now I know what it looks like when a cheetah is about to give birth. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. And another cool story is when you guys came and you photographed those blue corans, they were still very shy birds. Like they naturally are quite shy birds. So to get a good photograph in general is a challenge. But those, the pair, and now they've got a youngster with them, are so habituated because we view them so often now. And the other day I got an amazing video of them like drinking at a watering hole, which is like insane.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, but again, that just spreads. You've got the cheetahs, you've got the tigers,
Yeah.
and we spend a lot of time looking for the birds and experiencing Tiger Canyon. And I have this absolute, I want to get back there because I want to spend more time with the tigers.
Yeah.
And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I'll spend 4 days there and just photograph the tigers, and I'll get back and I'll go, should have photographed the cheetahs again.
Yeah.
And then the bird life is so rich. And then something that was very, very, very special was a black-footed cat.
Yes, and you got a photograph.
I got a photograph in focus.
Yeah.
I'm so happy
Yeah,
about that.
I think like the first
R3,
guest
amazing.
ever, to get a clear shot. Well, also, I mean, beside the fact that they're super shy, so to see one is special, and then to be able to photograph it is like next level.
It is. That was amazing.
Yeah.
And then obviously all the usual characters of the night: the art wolf, art fox.
Yes, great sightings of
porcupines,
those. Yeah.
and the large-eared mouse.
Yes, large-eared mouse. Yeah.
It's a kind of interesting on-foot hunt.
Yeah.
To get. Wait, aren't there tigers here somewhere? I constantly had this thing. There are tigers. So every
Yes,
time we got out of the vehicle, even though it's actually split up into camps, and you guys obviously know what you're doing in keeping people safe. I'm busy. Hold on.
Yeah.
There are
It's a good
tigers here
instinct.
somewhere.
It's a good instinct.
The problem is when I have it, I'm usually already out of the vehicle.
Yes, too late.
But that kind of all led towards you taking more photographs with you being at Tiger Canyon.
Yes, so I'd always, growing up, going to Kruger, my dad always had a bridge camera of some sort, Panasonic, whatever it was, Canon at a stage. And I was always designated like photographer. And I always had something for it, like this inkling. And then I started working in the industry, and it started off with cell phone pictures, a lot of stuff like that. And then I was gifted a small Canon 700D, and again started taking a couple of photos here and there. But when the picture isn't that like picture that you wanted, or you kind of strive for more and more. And then when I started at Tiger Canyon, I borrowed their gear. And that is when I was like, wow, what a difference it makes to have like a proper setup, good gear. And I've always used Canon, and I've always enjoyed it. And, I've done photography training numerous times, and I was always trained on Canon. So whenever a guest is like, help me with my Nikon settings, I have no idea. Like, it's amazing how different it is.
It is. The basics are the same, but it's usually not the basics that they're asking about.
Exactly, yeah.
So what are you currently using? What are you shooting? How are you experiencing it?
Canon R6.
All right.
100, 400 lens, and then the 800 f11, the fixed.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that lens is a lens that a lot of people are skeptic about. So I'm glad you mentioned it, and I'm glad you've got it.
I love it. Absolutely love it. I'm a sucker for, I'm a birder, and I like to take photographs of birds. So for birding, it's amazing. When you think that you're far away enough, you're too close. Like, you're always too close. So it's perfect. But it is a challenging lens, though. It is certainly, I can understand why people might not use it as often or whatever, because especially if you're photographing birds, you've got to find that spot on the bush. And then usually by the time you find the spot, the bird is gone. So it's,
So you got to learn how to use it.
Yes. You got to know where to point.
And the R6 and the focusing system, everything else, has the gear been behaving itself in the canyon?
Yes, it's been amazing. I've super impressed with the eye tracking. One of the first pictures I actually took, and I used the auto eye tracking. It was for dragonflies, mating dragonflies over water. So it was amazing. Like, to try and keep up with the dragonfly in flight is pretty challenging, not with the eye focus.
Just keep it in the frame.
Keep it, yeah, exactly. You got to just keep it in the frame. And I had like a split second to take the shot, and I was like, oh my goodness, I got it. Yeah.
Awesome. And obviously you've got the gear here today, and we're going to have a look at it. Make sure all the firmware and everything is up to date. And
it isn't. So we will have to do that.
Well, it's like putting a turbo booster in it, so it's all
awesome.
improvements.
Okay.
And we'll just double check everything is clean and everything.
Perfect.
I'm glad you're
Thank
enjoying
you.
it.
Yes,
I'm
much fun.
Glad you're enjoying
and
the
to be in
journey
an
of photography.
Exactly, and to be in an environment like Tiger Canyon is just a photographer's dream, really. Yeah.
And for everything, I mean, all the little things, the tigers, all the big things, all the birds, everything else.
You know, and that's what's nice about also staying at a place for a long period of time. It allows you to get those pictures that you have been looking for, you know. So we'll drive in the canyon and you see a beautiful rock and you're like, the day I see a tiger on this rock, you know. And then that one game drive where you turn the corner and there's a tiger on that rock. You're like, yes, today is the day.
But also the advantage of you being involved with photography and taking it up so seriously, that also puts you in a situation where if you've got guests, you know what they're looking for.
Exactly.
You know the angles. You know where to get people into the position to get the right shots.
Yeah, it's a lot about anticipating. Exactly. Knowing the animals' behavior, how to read their behavior, and also knowing the habits of the animals where you work. So again, working there for a longer period of time, you really get to learn when a tiger walks between those rocks, where does it normally walk? It normally actually walks on that side of the rock. So you can kind of preempt, exactly, position accordingly. And then obviously a lot of it is patience as well. People forget that sometimes.
Cats do cats.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not there to...
Don't snap our fingers and say, okay, pose now for us, please. You know, if they get tired and lazy and sleepy sometimes too. So.
I always say dogs have owners and cats have staff.
Yes, yeah.
So, I want to thank you so much for coming out and having this chat with us. I want to implore people to get into contact with you guys and book time. I recently saw that you guys are open for day visitors as well. Yes.
So if you can't afford to stay at the lodge, you can stay in Philippolis, which is just outside, 25 kilometers, and then you can come in for a day drive.
Yeah, it's incredible, guys. I can't recommend this place enough. I know there's a lot of controversy. Tigers have been in the spotlight now for the last couple of weeks because of a situation here in Joburg. We're not going to go into too much.
Just an interesting fact, though, there are more than 100 tiger owners in Johannesburg.
That's insane.
Yeah. So there was a couple of people thinking, "Ooh, glad that wasn't my tiger."
Yeah. I can imagine. But your tigers are wild.
Yes.
They're out. They're doing their own thing.
Yes. Hunting, adapting to their environments. It's incredible to see. Yeah. Very incredible to see.
I look forward to joining you guys again sometime.
We look forward to having you. Let us know.
Thank you. I will be there.
Awesome.
All the best of luck. Anything in the future that you've got planned? Trips? Anything? Where can we get hold of your photography accounts? Where can we look at your work? Where can we get hold of Tiger Canyon?
So Instagram, and we do have a website. My Instagram, Instagram handle? That's the word. Daniella Kueck Wild Photography.
Okay.
And then Tiger Canyon SA, and then obviously we also have a website, tigercanyon.com.
And then we can just get the bookings through there. And
so you'll get actually direct contact with us.
What kind of period of time? Obviously living there is the ideal situation.
Yes.
But for guests trying to just pass through there and come and have a look.
Definitely 3 nights is a minimum.
3 nights.
Especially if you're into photography or if you're just into everything. Because it's 2 nights is, I always find, just too short to kind of show you everything.
I can concur. We were there for 2 nights.
Yes,
and I left there and I told my wife, I want to stay another night.
Exactly. One more night just as... it also takes the pressure off the guides. You know, if you have a drive where you can't find a tiger, you know, that obviously just puts the pressure on. And we want to show you guys tigers, free roaming, wild-born tigers. Yeah,
insane!
It's
What an
pretty cool.
experience! Again, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us, guys. Look forward to bringing more of these shows to you, and have a great day.
Thank you.